Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel, 1770 to 1831, was a German philosopher who remains one of the most influential figures in Western philosophy. Known for his complex and systematic approach to understanding reality, Hegel developed a method of thinking called dialectics. This method focuses on the dynamic interplay of opposing ideas, leading to progress and resolution. He is often regarded as the pinnacle of German idealism, a movement concerned with the nature of reality, thought, and the self. Hegel's works span areas such as history, politics, religion, art, and logic. At the heart of Hegel's philosophy is the concept of dialectics, which posits that change occurs through a three-stage process: thesis, an initial condition or idea; antithesis, its opposition; and synthesis, their resolution into a higher unity. The thesis represents an initial state or proposition. It serves as the initial premise or foundational idea from which discussion or inquiry begins. As the first stage in the triadic process of thesis, antithesis, and synthesis, it stands as an essential element in establishing the groundwork upon which contradictions and their eventual resolutions are built. This initial stage captures a specific truth or perspective, reflecting the cultural, historical, or intellectual conditions of its time. The thesis is not static. It is imbued with inherent limitations or tensions that inevitably prompt its critique, leading to the emergence of the antithesis. It does not exist in isolation, but is deeply interconnected with the dialectical process. Its significance lies in its ability to illuminate a partial or one-sided understanding of a concept or reality. For instance, a thesis might assert the primacy of individual freedom, highlighting its value and necessity. However, this assertion, while true, may neglect competing considerations, such as social cohesion or collective welfare. Such omissions create the conditions for the antithesis to arise, which challenges the initial proposition and exposes its incompleteness. In this way, the thesis functions as both a catalyst and a boundary marker, setting the stage for dialectical progression. By framing the thesis as a starting point, Hegel emphasizes its role in the broader movement of thought toward absolute knowledge. The limitations of the thesis are not seen as failures, but as essential drivers of intellectual development. It serves as a moment within a continuous unfolding, where contradictions are not merely negated, but preserved and transcended in the synthesis. This process exemplifies the dynamic nature of truth in Hegel's philosophy, where each thesis, through its eventual resolution, contributes to a more comprehensive understanding of reality. Thus, the thesis is both an origin and a necessary stepping stone in the dialectical journey. The antithesis emerges as its contradiction or negation. Central to Hegelian dialectics is the concept of negation, which is not simply destructive but transformative. When an idea or system encounters its negation, this conflict forces it to transcend its limitations. In doing so, it gives rise to a more comprehensive and enriched form. For example, in Phenomenology of Spirit, Hegel describes the evolution of human consciousness as a dialectical process. Each stage, such as sense certainty, self-consciousness, and reason, arises by confronting and resolving the limitations of the previous stage. Negation, therefore, is not an endpoint, but a necessary step toward progress. Hegel saw this dialectical unfolding as the fundamental structure of reality, one that enables both intellectual growth and historical development. The synthesis resolves the tension by integrating the opposing elements into a higher unity. Importantly, this synthesis is not final. It becomes a new thesis, starting the process anew. For Hegel, this method applies universally to logic, nature, history, and society, highlighting the interconnected and self-developing nature of reality. It represents the culmination of the dynamic interaction between the thesis and antithesis. It is not a mere compromise or amalgamation of the two preceding ideas, but a higher-order resolution that transcends their limitations while preserving their essential truths. The synthesis emerges as a new and enriched perspective, embodying the unity of opposites and reflecting a more comprehensive understanding of the subject. This integrative process illustrates Hegel's belief in the progressive nature of thought and reality, where contradictions are not terminal but productive, driving the evolution of ideas. The synthesis achieves its resolution by addressing the contradictions inherent in the thesis and antithesis, reconciling their conflicts without erasing their contributions. For example, in the context of individual freedom, thesis, and social cohesion, antithesis, the synthesis might propose a framework in which personal liberty is harmonized with collective responsibility. In this way, the synthesis does not negate the validity of the earlier stages, but instead incorporates their insights into a more balanced and nuanced whole. This progression illustrates the dialectical movement toward greater complexity and depth, where each synthesis, in turn, becomes a new thesis, inviting further challenges and resolutions. Hegel's conception of synthesis is central to his vision of historical and intellectual development. It reflects his conviction that truth unfolds through a process of self-negation and self-realization, with each synthesis contributing to the ultimate goal of absolute knowledge. Far from being a static endpoint, the synthesis is a dynamic stage in the ongoing dialectical process. By uniting conflicting elements into a higher unity, it reveals the interconnectedness and interdependence of ideas, demonstrating how contradictions can be resolved in ways that expand understanding and create pathways for further inquiry. Thus, the synthesis exemplifies the creative potential of dialectics and the transformative power of reason.